The Nations League continues to deliver drama as those spots for the Olympics get tighter and tighter. So let's talk about it. Well, it is the first year that the newly introduced UEFA Nation Leagues is running. It serves to replace some of the friendlies camps that we used to see, as well as some of the qualification competitions that used to happen around this time. This also includes the Euro qualifications, the Women's World Cup qualifications, and something that will be off topic today is the Olympics qualifications. Now, if you're not too aware of how the Nation League looks like in terms of the structure, the relegation, the promotion system, as well as the qualification for these competitions that I just talked about, I made an entire video breaking it down from the first kind of the highest tier, which is the League A, moving downwards, and again how those teams can get promoted and relegated as the competition moves on. So I will leave a link down below for that. Today I'm going to be talking about some of the results that we saw happen on match day 5 in League A, so that's excluding League B and C and everything kind of below League A. Obviously we've got to start off with the Netherlands versus England. Now, coming into this game, the lionesses were sitting on 2 losses, the first one being against the Dutch, and the second one was the most recent one against Belgium. And there's a lot on the line for England. So let me explain. They hold the qualification, or they are the ones responsible to qualify Team Great Britain for the Olympics. At the Olympics, we don't have what we know today as England or the Lionesses, or kind of this team that we see play every other international window. Instead, we have Team Great Britain. Now, that is a result of the decision that the FA and the Olympics Games came to an agreement to a few years ago, specifically when they hosted the 2012 London Olympics. But we saw Team Great Britain take action in the women's soccer back in 2012, 2020, 2021 recently, and now again Team Great Britain will be the one entering the Olympics. Shall they qualify? Team Great Britain includes players that are eligible to play for England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland. However, because of the rankings, England are the chosen team to qualify Team Great Britain, meaning England need to qualify or need to end up in a qualification spot in order for Team Great Britain to go through. And funny enough, actually, Scotland and Wales have both been relegated from League A, and Northern Ireland is in League B. But speaking of League A and how the Olympics qualifications work is that they've got 4 groups. The top 4 teams go into a semi-final, and then the 2 finalists are those that clinch an Olympic spot. Which, in other words, and in simpler terms, England need to top their group in order to have a chance for Team GB to qualify. Now, as we know from today, England beat the Netherlands 3-2, which we'll get to discuss the game in just a moment. And things only get a little bit more confusing with the fact that Scotland is their last fixture. The next set of fixtures, the Netherlands take on Belgium and the English take on Scotland. And there's a few results that can come out of this. Belgium can make it through if they beat the Netherlands and England loses to Scotland. Or if the Netherlands beat Belgium, they can make it through. But if England beats Scotland, they need to beat Scotland by a bigger margin than the goal difference between them and the Dutch to make it through. So basically, England, not only do they have to win and hope the Netherlands also draw a point, but they're also keeping in mind that there's a goal difference in play. But what's so bizarre is obviously Scotland, like I mentioned, their players could be chosen for Team Great Britain at the Olympics. Meaning, if they want to play for Great Britain, and if they want Great Britain to have a chance to make it at the Olympics, they need England to win and top the group. Meaning that they would have to quite literally get trashed on purpose for their players to have a chance to go to the Olympics, which is just so stupidly bizarre. Now, this conflict of interest is really, really bizarre, and you'd think UEFA would have some kind of control over it, knowing the fact that Scotland and England can't go against each other because Scotland and England are kind of fighting for the same goal here. Like, Scotland have to be allies of England because they need England to qualify, but at the same time, knowing the history between the two, the Scottish are not going to throw a fight or just, they're not going to give a win like that for the English. Like, it just doesn't make sense. And at the same time, you can get a little bit petty here and say that Scotland they don't have a lot of players that get chosen. You know, you've got your Anne Cuthbert, maybe your Caroline Weir, she's out with an ACL injury, so even if they qualify for the Olympics, is she going to make it for the Olympics? Like, Team Great Britain is predominantly English players, with like maybe the exception of Sophie Ingle and like maybe Fishlock from Wales. But like, that's it. Which, this is for a separate conversation, but the whole idea of Team Great Britain at the Olympics is just a bit silly. Like, let's have Team Scandinavia. Let's have Team North America. Like, if we're putting a few teams here into one team, let's do that all together. So Team Great Britain anyway is just I haven't really been able to digest it too well. Now that's out of the way, let's talk a little bit about the game. Quite a dramatic game here. It was 2-0 at halftime for the Dutch. England turned it around to be 3-2 at full time. There's two changes that England made from their loss against Belgium. Millie Bright, who's currently dealing with a knee injury, obviously forced out. Jess Carter took her place. Alessia Russo started on the bench with Lauren James starting instead of her. Lauren Hemp was playing as the 9 and Serena Wiegman was rolling with a 4-3-3. The Dutch came out with the same exact starting 11 as the side that beat England 2-1 in that first Nations League fixture. There's a few things that Serena Wiegman got wrong here, and specifically that starting back four. She had Niamh Charles, Alex Greenwood, Jess Carter, and Lucy Bronze. You can see why Serena Wiegman thought that is the four that she wanted to work best with, but I don't think it worked out as good as she wanted to in her head. Now, Serena Wiegman wanted to have Lucy Bronze and Niamh Charles play more of what would appear as a wing-back role, which meant the two center backs that often you would see when the two are pulling up high are Alex Greenwood and Jess Carter. Both of those players playing as middle center backs for Serena Wiegman play as fullbacks for club. Alex Greenwood has been playing left back. She can play centrally, but when you put her beside somebody who plays right back, it just is not a good balance. There's an asymmetry on the wings and there's an asymmetry in the middle. So the back four are automatically out of balance purely because of the preferred positions that the players play and to where they are playing together. Combined together, that's not the recipe that you want to have in the back. And we saw there was clearly a lot of confusion. There was a lot of spaces being exposed behind both the fullbacks, Lucy Bronze and Niamh Charles, given that they were pulling up so flipping high at the same time together, which left Greenwood and Carter with a lot of spaces to cover, and given that the Netherlands have some pretty good attacking players, it was just simply too hard. And I think the Netherlands too, coming out with a 3-5-2 in that position of kind of almost overloading at the midfield consistently, made it even more difficult for England to deal with that, because not only were they down because of the fullback being so extremely exposed, but the Dutch almost always had an extra player in there on the ball or off the ball, again, given how they changed their structure. Keira Walsh in that first half played so deep because she was trying to cover for Lucy Bronze and Niamh Charles and trying to add a little bit of support for both Alex Greenwood and Jess Carter, that you did not get to see that service from Keira Walsh a little bit higher on the pitch. So not only in the first half you had a little bit of a disjointed back line, but your midfield was so far deep in trying to help and dealing with that extra player that the Netherlands automatically have because of the structure. It was a very poor first half from England, and the Netherlands really only needed to have a few shots. I think they had 3 shots on target the entire game and they scored 2 of them. That first goal by the Netherlands embodied everything that England could not do and everything that the Dutch could do, which is overloading on the sides, having too many players in the middle that England couldn't deal with, and simply exposing that disjointed back line. You don't see many goals kind of expose everything in 1 or 2 balls, but that first goal, if you go back and watch it, is exactly what England put out in that first half that needed to be changed into the second half. For that second goal, it was really poor. Again, a little bit of disjointed, leaving a lot of spaces, and there was an aspect to fear a little bit that you saw from the English players when they wanted to defend or work around Bjornstein, which, again, understandable. She scored the first goal. You want to be wary of your position and kind of, again, you're wary of her danger, but you can't get too wary. Like, you've got to respect the opponent, but you cannot respect the opponent too much, or else that's what's going to happen. And I think that's not to say that it was very poor goalkeeping from Mary Earps, but her defense did let her down. So that first half was not very good for England. I think they started really, really well. They were pressing. They had that energy up top. Again, when you had that midfield press higher, Keira Walsh being such an important player, because when she moves up high, all that midfield moves up high with her. And then you've got that service a little bit to the front players. And I'm not sure if Lauren Hemp and Chloe Kelly are the two to put together. Like, they work fantastically working from wing to wing rather than a striker and a winger. We did see that against the US, obviously, at Wembley a few months ago. Lauren Hemp as the 9. Not sure what Serena Wiegman is really looking for that. Maybe it's the pace, trying to expose the slowish defenders, you can say aging-ish defenders of the Dutch backline. So maybe it was a pace kind of thing that she's looking for, but I'm not sure them two working together works just yet. I mean, maybe she's cooking, who knows. In the second half, when Beth Mead came on, that higher press that you can see in the first half because of the lack of the surface, you finally got to see. And instantly you saw Keira Walsh pull up a little bit higher and she wasn't so stuck behind. You also got to see, I'm not sure what Serena Wiegman told him the changing room, but Lucy Bronze and Niamh Charles were not committing together at the same time. In fact, Lauren Hemp was actually kind of cutting in, dropping a little bit lower, and we saw her put in these immaculate crosses, which stabilized a little bit of that asymmetry. So depending on who of the fullbacks was committing up higher, they were working together with the winger. So it's like a circle working together rather than like a very disjointed first half, asymmetrical looking like side. And once England was able to get their midfield going, and they were the ones having important possession and effective possession, then they could make something out of it. We saw that first goal quickly before you even know it, the second goal, and then with a little bit of the changes of Alessia Russo and Ella Toone, you got that third and winning goal at the end of the game in extra time. And I kind of really enjoyed actually seeing Alessia Russo and Ella Toone come on, because it reminded me of the Euros, like that was, which is the duo that she had consistently substituted on during the Euros. So in the second half, you had a little bit more symmetry and balance on the sides. You had Kara Walsh not dropping in so low anymore. She was a little bit higher. She was working with Stanway and Kirby, and very much effectively with Lauren James. So they were a little bit higher on the pitch, and you were able to get that surface in dangerous areas. Again, Lauren James on the ball is so good, and she's so dangerous, and like, I'm sorry, you have to sit and say she's one of the best players, because her deliveries are so smooth. They're absolutely on point. The way she spots her teammates, again, I'm not just talking for England, like we see this week in and week out for Chelsea. She's so good. She had almost triple the amount of touches in that second half that she did in that first half. And I think that encapsulated everything. Like, you were getting the ball to the players that you needed with a little bit of energy from Beth Mead, with a little bit of pressure and press after the team was so deflated and kind of a little bit scared. And that balance against being reinforced in the back, we saw England come up with their dangerous players, and you know, their individual stars are so good. They're going to capitalize on moments like this. We saw obviously Esme Morgan make way instead of Jess Carter mid-game there, and I think it was an interesting substitute, because I feel like I don't know how Serena Wiegman profiles her defenders. Like, if you think that Niamh Charles and Lucy Bronze and Alex Greenwood and Jess Carter is the four that you're starting with, again, granted, Millie Bright and Leah Williamson are out, I just don't see how that works for you. Like, I don't see how you see that profile coming together. She has a few options that she's brought into camp. Obviously, you know, Lotte Wibben-Moy, Letitia, Turner. Like, there's players that can play both in the fullback position and in the middle. You can put Jess Carter and Greenwood also in the middle and kind of have a fullback a little bit. Like, there's so many different profiles that you can work together, and I'm not sure this is the one that is the one. So how Wiegman herself is profiling the defenders could be a little bit different to how we're seeing it, and I think that's a question that I can't answer, is I just don't know how she sees it. But Scotland are not going to give England an easy game at all. And again, putting all the qualification stuff aside, like, Scotland are still going to show up for a good game, and England wanting to make sure they score 3 or 4 goals at least is going to be a very tough task. Scotland defended very well against England last time out, as well as the Dutch. Like, they had a very good defensive showing, and so Scotland is not going to be an easy team where you're having that abundance of goals coming in. The Netherlands also is not going to have an easy game against Belgium. I think them dropping a 2-0 lead is concerning. That's something they've got to look at. There's no way a team of that caliber should be letting go a 2-0 lead, again, regardless of the opposition. The way they dropped back in the second half and kind of went into all defense panic mode should not be the way these Dutch players play. Everybody knows how dynamic they can be when they start putting passes together, and then when they press high and when they're able to break down battles in the midfield. Like, it's a dangerous Dutch side. There's a reason they're leading that group. So for them too, they need to figure it out in terms of, if they have a lead against Belgium, they can't drop whatever lead they have. So the Netherlands and England both have a ton of pressure going into this. With that being said, though, it was fantastic to see a packed out Wembley. The weather obviously is very cold. It's a Friday afternoon, but it's fantastic that they're able to have great turnouts. Obviously, everybody's going to come out and want to see the Lionesses as well as the Netherlands. Like, they're a massive opposition that have a lot of history there. Again, their relation with Serena Wiegman. It was great attendance that we got to see, and people are watching, like this is not a surprise. It's the World Cup after effect and the Euros after effect as well. Italy beat Spain 3-2. At some point they were 3-0 up. A massive result for Italy. I mean, this is the best I've seen them attack, and this is the best I've seen them defend. The other team from the World Cup podium, Sweden, actually lost to Switzerland, which is such a storyline you cannot write, because with Italy beating Spain, Switzerland is now relegated, and Switzerland beat Sweden to kind of put a little bit of hope. The Swiss are relegated now, but for Spain it doesn't really matter because they already had booked their semifinal ticket. But for Sweden, I mean, Sweden cannot qualify for the Olympics, and this is for the first time ever that the Swedish cannot qualify because Spain topped the group. And like I mentioned, whoever tops the group is the one that proceeds, goes on, and has a chance to qualify. So a lot of drama that we're seeing here. Scotland and Wales, like I mentioned, are getting relegated. It's going to be very interesting. The two other groups are looking very, very tasty as well. Obviously, France qualified, but France are the host nation, so kind of opens up another spot for a qualification, which is going to be very interesting.